All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I'm really bad at intros. So hello. Here we are. We are joined today with Sebs Fintech, your friend Andy, and Mining Chamber. And really, this is inside the rig, meeting of the minds, just kind of coming together and talking crypto and having a good time. Nothing too formal, just hanging out, shooting the shit, really. Let me start off by saying, Mining Chamber, how are you today? How's things going?
I am good. Thank you. Thank you for having us here. And it sure will be a great talk. Hell of a questions we got.
Yeah, I think we got some good stuff to talk about. Sebs, how are you today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I mean, just like I feel like Mining Chamber covered it all already. This will be great. I'm really looking forward to chatting it up with you guys. And I know we got some good questions in the document here that we're going to be tackling today. So looking forward to getting your guys' perspective on those things.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining. And Andy, how are you? How's your day so far?
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm looking over here and we're at $69,554 Bitcoin. Will we cross back over 70K while we're live? I don't know, but I'm here for it and I'm excited.
That would be a sight to see. Yeah, we're at 69.5 from Coin Market Cap. So, and I cut somebody off. Wait, where'd we go? Oh, good times.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah, producer of the year right here. I'm not going to go through and say hi to everybody in the chat, but hey, everybody in the chat, thanks for joining. We're gonna kind of jump into it and get right to it. So, first question, I'm going to start with Sebs. Starting point: what sparked your interest in crypto mining, and how long have you been in mining specifically?
I've been actively mining since very early on 2021. Basically, when I started my channel was when I got into it for real. Wow. I was very aware of crypto mining for a long time. Before that, though, I had a good friend who was in the space and doing it all, but I just never had the opportunity really to get started. Before then, I was kind of like, just renting a room in a random flat. I didn't have like a space I could dedicate to set up like a GPU rig or anything. But your question was what it was that sparked it. I think it was just like finally actually having the opportunity to get into it after wanting to do it for many years. I think that more than anything. And of course, it also didn't hurt that at that time it was incredibly profitable to do so.
Yeah, so, that was the ETH days, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Mining Chamber? Same question. What sparked your interest, and how long have you been in mining?
It's been since 2019. So I've used to build a lot of PCs, and I've just had a lot of GPUs left over. So the most reasonable thing as an investor in crypto before, I was like, okay, what is mining? It sounds very interesting. Might as well crank up some GPUs on it, and then it's a rabbit hole from there. You don't get out of it.
No, you don't. That's for sure.
You don't. It's not.
What about you, Andy?
So my first encounter with mining was 2012, 2013. A friend of mine was telling me about how he was using his graphic card to mine this internet money thing, and I thought it was just the dumbest thing ever. But I did watch the bull run of Bitcoin when it first crossed $1,000 in 2013, and then right after that, I got kind of sucked into that whole world, and so I built a Litecoin mining rig in a milk crate in 2014. And then I had mixed results with it after that and kind of gave it up. And then I didn't jump back in until towards the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And that's when I got into mining pretty seriously from my point of view. So some people with much bigger operations and stuff. And then I've just kind of been doing it ever since. Made lots of money with mining. I do lots of speculative mining. Now I've most of my hash rate is on Bitcoin, but I love mining. I love the opportunities it presents, and I think there's very little out there in the world that is a good analog for the opportunities that you can find in mining.
Yeah, especially for the little guy. Yeah, that makes sense. And so I guess that kind of transitions. How do you feel about, like you said, specifically your Bitcoin mining? Most of your hash rate is on Bitcoin. How do you feel about some of these large companies coming in, not just the riots, but like these ETFs, rumors about BlackRock wanting to buy mining facilities and start mining directly, for their own funds and stuff. How is that going to kind of rip away that opportunity for the little guys? Are we really in a limited amount of time here?
Oh, I mean, there's just so many variables, right? Like when it comes to whether or not it's a good decision to jump into like something like Bitcoin mining, you look at your ROI calculations, your break even times, and stuff like this, and all of it honestly just is silly to think about because none of it is real. It's all based on future assumptions that are almost always wrong. So the answer is it depends on what the price of Bitcoin is in the future, and it depends on how much adoption we have, because the secret sauce to things like Bitcoin is not just the block reward, it's the transaction fees, which if my thesis is correct about Bitcoin into the next 5 or 10 years, I imagine the transaction fees will eclipse the block rewards by maybe multiples. So I don't see it as unreasonable to think that if we keep going in the direction we are, and the BlackRocks and the Fidelities and the Bitwises of the world keep gobbling up Bitcoin like they are, that the price is going to go so high, and there's going to be so much usage of it, and it's a fairly slow and limited chain, that I could potentially make more Bitcoin, actually mine Bitcoin per month over the next year than I did over the last year during the bear market. So I mean, there's the transaction fee variable. There's of course the price, but ultimately it's like more hash rate on the network is better, because if you have big players, they want to make money. They don't want to sell it for cheaper prices. They want the price to go up. There's going to be market forces there that are working in our favor. But yeah, I mean, like end of the day, little miners, theoretically we're going to get less and less. It's going to be harder to compete with all that. But I think it can still be a very profitable thing. I think hardware arbitrage is a whole different opportunity we could all talk about. That's really fascinating. You could make a lot of money just doing that. But mining in general, no. I mean, there's just still so much like to look forward to, and so much possibility there in the next several years.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with everything you just said. You're really good. You just said it all. All right, guys. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
That was a good stream.
It was a good stream. Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming. Okay, so mining chamber, learning curve. So as a beginner, what were some of the most challenging aspects of like setting up and understanding the intricacies of crypto mining, and how did you overcome them?
For me, it wouldn't be building the rigs, since I was building a lot of PCs, so I understood the technical aspect of that, but the overclocking side of things, that's a whole beast in itself. I think that was the most difficult step for everyone I've talked to as well. Learning how to properly overclock, and even just understanding the market, because most people get into crypto, they're not really degens on the crypto side. They love hardware. They want to mine. They want to use their hardware. So they don't understand crypto at all, how the wallets work, how blockchain works, and the technical aspects of that. So those two together would probably be the biggest stepping stone into mining, learning how to overclock, and as well as learning the blockchain and how it works, so you can see the value of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of my big learning curves as well, and I still, have trouble with it. How overclocking, memory versus core, and what affects what algorithm and what coins. I just kind of follow what you guys do and what the rest of the YouTubers say to do, and I'm like, okay, well that works, cool. And then like tweak it a little bit, go up by 1 or up by 50 or down by 25, and that works better for me. And Silicon Lottery, you know how that goes. Sebs, what about you? Same thing. What's been your biggest learning curve that you've had to overcome?
Oh, good question. I'm kind of still stuck on what you asked Andy, and kind of his answer there. Because do you mind if I just give my 2 cents about that?
Yeah, please do.
Because I think Andy, like you really made some good points, and especially about sort of like the overarching perspective of it all. I'm looking at it from like my own little basement here, right, and my perspective, and it's like it's a bit of a double-edged sword, as there's 2 sides to every coin, with like all these big organizations and companies getting into the crypto space. It obviously brings in legitimacy, and it brings it into the mainstream, and ultimately what we want should be mass adoption, right? And that is what that is. But of course, with that, as specifically miners in the space, mining is at the end of the day a zero-sum game, and the more people that are doing it, the less each player gets. And with big players coming in, there is less for us with our little, whatever rigs we have going here, compared to these like megawatt and even gigawatt farms they are building, right? I don't have like a point to all of this more than like, as with everything, there are two sides to every coin, and we should probably just focus on the fact that like this is the way it will be going for the next year, and then kind of prep ourselves for that. And maybe as home miners, we need to shift our focus into more speculative mining, like Andy brought up previously, altcoin mining, mining lower market cap coins, being more in like the trenches of finding new coins and jumping on new projects. I know DPIN is really popping off, it seems, this cycle. That could be a massive moneymaker for those of you who kind of want to take that route as opposed to like a more traditional mining route. So yeah, I guess that's sort of my perspective on that. As for challenges, getting into mining, everything, you know, like it's not easy, but it kind of, that doesn't matter because it's fun and it's rewarding. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think most of us who get into it as sort of just regular Joes getting into mining at home, like we do it because we have some sort of passion for either the hardware side, the software side, like the technology behind it all, whatever that might be. But we get into it because we're interested in it. And then that makes it not matter that it's difficult, because you kind of get that reward of getting to do something you enjoy. And there's not a lot of hobbies that actually pay money. So, I mean, seeing it from that perspective, we're doing all right, I think. So as for challenges, yeah, everything, but it's worth it.
We're literally building money printers in our basements, in our rooms, our garages, whatever. I mean, yeah, it combines if that love of like hardware and stuff. Cause I was, you know, I grew up building computers and all that, and I really enjoyed that, getting the latest gaming computer built and trying to compete with my friends and stuff. But then to be able to take that same knowledge and fun and that hobby and then turn it into a money printer, one that if you pick the right thing, congratulations, you just made tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a crazy hobby. It's wild. It's super fun. And yeah, I think, but I want to jump back to that speculative thing. I talk about that a lot, and you just mentioned it. I think that's something that a lot of people sleep on a bit, because we just get focused on what's the most profitable and let's sell and cover our costs and whatever. But that's always been the most fun thing for me with mining, was the finding those gems, mining it, no idea if it's going to work out, then move on to the next one. And then, yeah, I have several virtual machines that have just a graveyard of QT core wallets and stuff that didn't go anywhere, but I have quite a few that did work out. So I don't know. Yeah, I think from a small mining perspective, that's a way to continue to give life to it. Although if it does all get big enough, yes, at the end of the day, it is kind of a zero-sum situation, but that depends on perspective too. If it gets just so massive, then even a tiny slice of the gigantic pie might be bigger than our bigger slice now.
Absolutely.
But we don't know the future. We don't know what it actually, if that's going to be the case, or if the corporations will own it 100% and completely push us out. It's tough to call.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a great point of like, rather than looking at, what's most profitable today, maybe we should all be kind of focusing more on what has the biggest potential future upside when we're mining.
On the same note is that we do have the deep inside of things. I didn't see any deep in questions there, but I want to say it here so we don't go over it. Is the fact that right now a lot of the AI is coming into play, where there's a lot of compute that's needed, which we label under the aspect of proof of useful work, which in reality is just compute on demand. And that in itself coming, now we can distinct between, for example, an ASIC miner and a GPU miner. We know that GPUs will always be needed. You might not be making a lot of money, but there's so much platforms that demand GPU compute power. So we're going to see like a little switch in narrative where we're not just going to be mining crypto and securing blockchains. We'll also be just using our GPUs for these pools of compute that's needed, which will be really good for GPU miners.
Yeah, the AI narrative, I think, we can't underestimate. It's already showing some of the demand, but I imagine that 5 or 10 years from now, that demand will be even more outrageous. And who has the most GPUs worldwide? I mean, it's got to be miners are up there somewhere, right?
Yeah, and then the companies like Flux and Vast AI and Akash that are out there trying to get your horsepower and your compute to use on their network and just give you a piece of the pie or give you a majority of, the sum, and they just keep a little bit as like that, broker kind of fee. I think that's really cool. And seeing, Flux specifically doing that on a crypto level where, all the transactions are done in crypto, and yeah, they're going to take money from their customers and then convert it to crypto to be able to pay, the providers, the hosters like us that are having. I got away from, Vast AI recently because looking at the numbers, okay, great. It's covering the cost of power right now, but like I have to pay taxes on that as an income, and after taxes and everything are all said and done, I'd make like $100 a month. And it's like that juice isn't worth the squeeze to me. Now, on the flip side, if that was coming in as crypto and I was completely paying out of pocket, I wouldn't have all of my hardware up, and I wouldn't be running 3, 4, 5,000 watts on it, right? Might have it dialed down enough that I can pay out of pocket, knowing that crypto is going to increase exponentially in value in the long term, whether it's this cycle or the next cycle. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, like finding those projects that you believe in. And that's part of the fun, but also part of the struggle. Like you were saying, how many wallets do you have out there that are just dead? There's no point in even looking at them because the project's gone or it's worth a junk. Versus the one or the few that really exploded and took off, and you're like, holy crap, I wish I'd have got more into this, right? I think we're all kind of in that boat. Speaking of electricity costs, so Sebs, how do you manage and optimize electricity costs that are associated with like mining and all the stuff that you do? I know you're in another part of the world, and here in Chicago, I'm paying almost 13 cents a kilowatt hour for my power. When I was in Atlanta, I was at like 8 cents, and I didn't have a mortgage. So it was like I was more than happy to just throw everything I had into the power bill. $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 power bill. It's fine. But when you got a $2,000 mortgage on top of it, it kind of changes things a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very similar to you. I'm because of currency fluctuations, right? I'm between usually 13 and 14 cents here, and it's all about like optimizing every aspect of the chain. So everything from like I spend a lot of time overclocking my GPUs for efficiency, and I've probably lost years of my life on that. It's about during this bear market now, when GPU mining saw a stretch of like not being profitable at my power rate, I took that opportunity to sell a lot of my older, less efficient GPUs, and then put that money into buying more efficient hardware, and as well as diversifying into different aspects of mining, like also getting some CPUs for mining and getting into a bit of ASIC mining as well. So you have like that side of it all with sort of optimizing the hardware, and also like the software side of things with overclocking. But then you also have everything else that you can do, right? Like you can call and nag your power companies, you can shop around, you can pit them against each other, you can look into like alternative sources for power. Like there was something I was looking into where you can like partially own a wind turbine, or like a wind, you could buy as a like a cooperative, you could kind of like buy into a wind turbine here. That was something you could do.
Really?
So it's like a massive upfront cost, but then it's basically free power, or very, very close to free power. And then also, of course, at the end of it all, you can then sell that part of the wind turbine on to someone else. So like there's always opportunity out there, but you gotta like do the research and do the work to, if it's something you want. Or there's hosting, like we have some great opportunities for hosting now, more than ever so before. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's all about just focus on sort of every step of the chain and see, like you might not be able to shop around for power. Like you might be locked into what do they call those, like artificial monopoly in your area, right?
Mhm.
Well, then maybe all it takes is for you to sell all your GPUs and buy gas miners, and then you can, mine profitably at home still, or get into hosting, or there's always opportunity out there if you're willing to do the work. That's sort of my sense there.
What about you, Andy? I know you're in the U.S. as well. How has electricity costs affected you? Watching some of your videos, you're doing a lot of hosting, right? When it comes to like Bitcoin specifically mining, but when you were mining at home, or I don't know, are you still mining some stuff at home? You have a couple of rigs on in the garage kind of thing?
Yeah, the mining shed's still operating. When I was only mining at home, yeah, I mean, I was just maxing out what I could on my on my circuit breakers and just kind of YOLOing it. Now, yeah, I host a lot, and I either try to run super efficient stuff, lower power stuff, but at various stages when things were just, it seemed like it just didn't make sense to run some or all of the rigs. I focused on low power alternatives, which aren't always miners, but in the past it was things like helium, or now it's things like geodenet or crank or what have you. Low power kind of situations, things that take 5 watts. I have a helium mobile hotspot at the house, and all that stuff is pretty easy, even if you have expensive electricity, because the unit uses 5 to 10 watts max 24/7. So yeah, alternate, but oftentimes too, just during the times where it seemed like it was just super unprofitable or something, I would just concentrate on finding stuff that wasn't listed yet. I mean, I mined Caspa from I found that one 2 weeks after it launched on Bitcoin Talk, and I mined that one for the entire 3 months of the bear market when it wasn't listed on any exchanges yet, had no price associated with it. Those things are not, they still exist. Maybe they're fewer and far between to find the really quality ones, but those opportunities still exist. And so I will just be as efficient as I can with how I speculate with things. But yeah, the big heavy stuff, I mean, I'm at 10 to 13 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on what time of year it is. And I don't run Bitcoin miners at home or anything, the Caspa machines. Although the Caspa ones would be extremely profitable even at my house, but those are also hosted.
Yeah, for sure. And mining chamber, I know you mentioned that you're doing a lot of traveling lately. So how are you still currently mining? Like, do you have a secret little cave somewhere that you got extension cords running into, and
Oh, now they're on to me now. But no, I do have a few ASICs running in my home country, which is free electricity, which is
wow.
great.
Man.
But before that, in Canada, I had a mining garage, which was just filled with GPU miners. I've never ran any ASICs as far as I remember inside the house, but it's just been purely GPUs. And they get hot, but even the electricity is not too bad, because where I was, the electricity was cheap in Montreal, which was like around 6 cents, I think, USD.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved to another province, which was in BC, and then that was like 10 cents, which I was still able to cover out of pocket instead of cashing in anything. But at some point, you'll do realize, once your overheads start getting pretty high and you want to use some fiat to buy GPUs, you'll want to start cashing out and pay for that electricity. I would say you balance your strategy based on what you see fit. For the people that are looking to ROI as fast as possible to play it safe, then those people might want to kind of take out of the profits monthly just to secure themselves a bit more. Like, everyone's going to have to play it based on their pockets.
I think that equation is also depending on how much we're talking. Like, my operation, I've never had like tons of GPUs. I think my max, I had like 25 GPUs or something. So, if people have 75, 100 or plus GPUs, that's a very different equation as far as like selling as you go, because paying for that out of pocket can be very dicey. It can be very expensive depending on what your salary is and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good point to make. That maybe if you're smaller, you can get away with pure speculation like what I do, pay out of pocket and just roll the dice and not worry about selling any along the way. But yeah, I mean, I talk to people who have hundreds of GPUs. I'm like, I don't know how you deal with that. That's a lot.
Do any of you guys have FPGAs? I've recently started looking into it. I've never owned one, never really looked into it. Heard about the bit streams and the super secret, stuff that goes on behind closed doors when it comes to all of those, type of things. And I'm very interested in it because it seems like it's one of those things that, I mean, it's that in between GPUs and ASICs, right? But it lasts so long. Like, I don't know. Do any of you guys own any of that, or have you played with those at all? What are your thoughts on FPGAs?
I don't own any, but I have some colorful opinions if you want to hear.
Please, yeah.
Well, I mean, I have nothing against them, but for me personally, it always seems like just such a stopgap, right? Like when something is new and you can like spec mine it, it's always like CPU or GPU, So if you want to jump on the coins early, that's what that's there for. And you also, of course, have the like ASIC resistant coins, and they will stay GPU or CPU forever. Or you have the coins that are like gonna end up being ASIC coins, right? Like your Caspas and your Radiance or whatever. And then, yeah, you do get between weeks and months of there being some bit streams for some FPGAs, but in like that is just a precursor that like ASICs are coming, And to me, it just seems so stressful to kind of chase those few months of like the FPGA being good, but that like I better get on this now because in a few months it's game over for my FPGAs. As with, I don't know, GPUs, you there's a vast like flexibility there because you're not having to like scour the internet for bit streams or anything. And with ASICs, it's like, well, then you're locked in already, so it's an ASIC. But I mean, but that's also just down to my personal preference, I guess. But anyway, those are my opinions about FPGAs.
I do echo that too. I think what Seb is on is 100%. And I also, one more thing about FPGAs, I've never had one, but the way I look at it from a developer standpoint is that it's such a private thing where people that develop them are the ones that is going to benefit the most. And then what we're going to get is just the leftovers, that little few months where we're going to be stressed about it. And until I can develop my own FPGA, then I can consider jumping into that wagon. Other than that, I'd be just sketched out.
I have I still run from when there's opportunities. I have 7 Black Miner F1 minis FPGAs. I've had a few other ones over the years, but conversely, I'll take the other side of this. Yeah, it's definitely like in the developers' best interests when they develop their bit streams and stuff. It's an exclusive club. You have to be in the right discords to find the right ones. You have to pay heavy developer fees to use the actual bit streams. There's a whole bunch of iffy stuff about it. And yes, it's absolutely true that because they are kind of a stopgap, for example, I mined Caspa for a time on my FPGAs for like 2.5 months before the ASICs started coming about. But this is, again, I'm the speculator. It's all I've ever done with mining. I don't ever mine the most popular things or whatever. I just pick stuff and speculate on it. Those little F1 minis, they mine thousands and thousands of Caspa in those couple months. I had them for like 6 to 9 months on Etika, which maybe no one knows about, but it's kind of a medical AI kind of smaller cap one. But that one, I don't know. That was like $5,000 to $8,000 worth of returns when it hit its recent all-time highs for just a few months. And mind you, these are FPGAs that use about 60 watts each. I've got 7 of them. They're tiny little things. They're very small, not a lot of hash rate. But I've thrown them on a handful of things over the years, and they have like paid for themselves many multiples of times over. So I'm okay with like bouncing around from thing to thing. But again, I think it's about scale. If you have a lot of them, if you have a big operation, if you're having a million moving pieces, no, you don't want to be moving something every other week or every couple months and then deciding which bit stream has the best dev fee like share and I'm willing to give up. And so for someone like me, they've made a lot of sense and I've made a lot of money with them. But I guess it depends on how big your operation is and stuff.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I came across clearly. I have nothing against them; they're just not to my personal taste. that was what my whole point was. I like it. They're obviously they are good,
Yeah. For me, I think budget was always a constraint where I could go out and buy, a $400 or way overpay for an RTX, 3060 Ti or something back in the ETH days versus, several $1,000s at the time I was looking at them for an FPGA, like thinking ETH right off the bat. When the ETH bitstreams came out, it was like insanely popular. But by the time, if you're already in it, great. But if you're buying it to get into a pump, like by the time ASICs come out, you're already underwater. And just like Andy was saying, if you have them already and you've had them for years and you're like, oh, cool, a bitstream, let's turn them on and mine a whole bunch of stuff real quick and then make it, the ASICs come out, turn it off, put them back in the closet till you need them again. That's awesome. GPUs are the same way, right? And it's like, great, now what are we chasing today? Is it, are we chasing this coin or that coin? So I think I look at FPGAs just like that next step above the GPU. So I agree with you, Andy. I like how that was put.
For all of these, though, I think we would all probably agree that not the most optimal time to buy ASICs, GPUs, FPGAs is while there's big pumps on the things that are popular to mine on them, while we're going into a crazy bull run and something like that. The best time to buy this stuff, is when nobody cares about it. It's when people are just selling it, liquidating their stuff on eBay during the heart of a bear market. That's the absolute best time to buy this stuff. So yeah, timing is a huge portion of it too. I bought my stuff not in this most recent, my FPGA is not in this most recent bear market, but the one before that. So who cares? I've turned them on sometimes, turn them off. They paid for themselves years ago. But it's a very different prospect. If I was looking at one of the popular ones when those ETH bitstreams popped up, and people are buying the I forget the name of the couple of popular ones now, the BCU ones or the anyway, some of those individual ones, like the prices doubled or tripled in like 2 to 3 weeks, less than a month. So that's not optimal time to be jumping into things like that. Yeah.
I think we've all overpaid for a piece of hardware from time to time. I think.
No, what do you mean? I have no. What are you talking about?
That's amazing.
No, never, not at all. That's awesome. I thought that was like wallpaper, man. That's great. I love that.
Like I gotta not move too quickly, or it falls.
It all falls.
Yeah.
I just want a somersault on that. Exactly.
Your next
somersault
video
on those boxes.
Boom. Oh. Okay, so we're all YouTubers here, for the most part. I mean, except Mining Chamber. You don't make videos anymore. We're still waiting on that next video to drop.
Ex-YouTuber.
Okay, ex-YouTuber. So how? Maybe it's a little bit of a different answer for us versus like some of the people that are watching, but how do we balance, life against mining? Like for me, my wife's just like, whatever, it's loud, get it out of the house. I don't care. So when I had the shed, it was great. I could just put all the stuff out there and it ran, and, the power bill was paid. So, she would complain about it sometimes, but then when it was getting cold, I'd bring a couple of machines in and help you heat the house and stuff like that. So for me, that balancing act of like life versus, mining, you kind of got a thin line that you got to walk there. What about you guys? Have you had any kind of struggles in that aspect?
I don't mind jumping in first here. I think as with anything, if you're in any sort of committed relationship, the first step is you got to have like very, very clear, well, this is my advice, at least, clear communication with your partner of like, this is what I'm doing, this is what it is, this is what it costs, this is like what I plan on, like how I plan on funding it, this is what I suggest we do with the money when, if there is a big amount of money coming in eventually from it. And just like, it's never a good idea to like hide stuff like that from a partner. So just from kind of like the relationship aspect of it all, like my wife, she's not interested in this, but she's obviously very well aware of it. It's like I run a YouTube channel about it for a living. It's how I feed my family. So just involving her to the point of like understanding what it is and why and how and to what extent. I think that it would be the very first step. Then you have all like the physical parts of it. Like, yeah, it's loud. it's warm, it uses a lot of power, it costs money. But those are all aspects you kind of have to deal with as and when they happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just go out and buy 5 ASICs and then be surprised when your partner complains that it's loud and warm.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, for sure. I think also, like in my day job, just having conversations with some of the other, engineers and managers and people that we work with, it's like I get on a Zoom chat and I have a Bitcoin hat on, and I was on a call with some of our managers a couple of weeks ago, and towards the end of the call, one of the guys was like, "Wait, I thought that was a baseball team hat. You have a Bitcoin hat on?" And it steered like the whole conversation into Bitcoin, and then talking about YouTube, and I got like 5 new subscribers out of it. Right? It was cool, but like I'm fairly passionate about crypto and what I do here, and I try to keep that separate from like work stuff. Even talking to customers, we get into crypto will come up, or AI will come up, and talking about utilizing existing cloud compute or their resources to repurpose for blah blah blah. It like you get those mixed emotions, and sometimes I feel difficulty in bringing that conversation up, because I'm like, what if they're going to say, "Oh, well, you're ruining the planet"? I don't want to have that kind of like roadblock. I want to keep the relationship with the customer on a good note, right? Same thing with like the people in my life and the people I work with and stuff like that. So I think that's where some of my difficulty comes in that church and state separation, I guess. Regulations. So have any of you dealt with any type of like regulatory challenges? I know that we're all watching, the news and Gary Gensler doing his Gary Gensler things, but how has any of that impacted what we do every day, other than taxes?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm in a completely different part of the world.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, in my part of the world, it was impacted. How I mentioned, it's free mining in my home country, which I won't state just because of the problems going on right now there. But recently, they've added a law where mining is as forbidden as smuggling in drugs in the country. So if
Really?
you're caught with mining machines, then you're off to the prison right away. So with
Wow.
that, they confiscated like all the mining rigs that are coming into the country, all the ASICs. And it's completely forbidden, but that's just due to the lack of information. They don't understand anything about crypto mining. Hell, they wouldn't even recognize an ASIC miner if you have it outside the box. They'd only recognize it inside the box where it says Ant Miner on it.
Yeah.
So that's on at least my home country side of the world. That's how it got impacted, but it's not related to US politics or anything like that.
You're still willing to roll the dice with the miners on the free electricity? Are you scared about that at all?
So there's ways you can go with it. You can be very, discreet about it. And if you have good connections, you'll be fine. So long that you're not going there and yelling out, "Hey, I'm mining," and, that's where you're going to get in trouble.
Got it.
What you're saying is you got a guy, right?
Yeah, I know a guy.
I know a guy.
I know a few, but yeah, no, it's good. It's been good. Not for now anymore.
Okay.
I mean, here in the U.S., I'm certainly interested to see where regulation stuff goes. I know that we need to make a lot of headway with all that before we can get to a place where it's more conducive to kind of making this mainstream, all this more widespread adoption. But as far as regulation is actually affecting me, not so far.
Okay.
And free as a bird so far.
So far, I think that's the key word there.
Yes, definitely.
Good deal. So I'm going to kind of spin this a little bit and show my cloud computing side. What are your guys' thoughts on Web3? So specifically, I look at Web3 traditionally as like, that step beyond Web2, where we've got the Googles and the Amazons and the Azures of the world that is a central entity, and even some of the smaller organizations that have data center footprints and provide like software as a service or infrastructure as a service or whatever. Moving to that Web3 is the way I originally viewed it, is it was more of a decentralized, like the Flux nodes that will do, simple like computing on distributed hardware that's not owned by a single entity or by a large organization. And looking at the footprint of where that is now and kind of where that's going, it's almost being gobbled up by some of those larger organizations that are taking that Web3 from a activity to a buzzword. What do you guys see anything similar there, or what are your thoughts when it comes to Web3, where it is, where it's going, and how that would impact us?
Web 3 is one better than Web 2, so it's good, right? That's where we want to go. I mean, Web 3 is interesting. Whether or not we can dismiss it as a buzzword or not is debatable. I think if it can find its place in the market, especially when it comes to compute, hosting, decentralized services, more broadly, the entire DePIN space, which I've been very passionate about for several years now, even before it had the name DePIN. I didn't realize that until I was a late bloomer on learning that it was all called DePIN. I just liked the stuff that was in that sector. I think if that can ever find its way into having real adoption in the market and settling into a solid product market fit, that could be huge because it's such an interesting proposition. You have again, we have the AWSs, the Azures of the world, and the compute and hosting space, and it's all centralized, and it's huge expenses, and there's a barrier to entry when it comes to a company utilizing them in terms of cost. But then we have the other side where instead of these companies, which I mean, I'm big on Flux. Companies like Flux, instead of them having to expend all these millions, if not more, on this infrastructure, you leave it to individuals to do it, and then you kick back a reward to them, and it's this really nice, mutually beneficial relationship. But the question is, will we ever get out of the beta phase, which is kind of what we're in right now? Will it, not just with literally some of these products being in beta, but I think this is all a big experiment. Mm-hmm. Even if there is some real adoption right now, it's still microscopic. I mean, this space is massive, and the amount of people actually utilizing this stuff built with blockchain backing is teeny tiny. And so I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be what determine whether we see this as a success and we all made money, became rich together, and we're driving matching Lamborghinis, or if it was just a fun experiment and then it's all over and we go womp womp, what did we learn in the process? And I don't know the answer to that one, but I'm obviously making bets there because I see the prospect, I see the opportunity.
On my side, so I do look at things a lot as a developer because I'm trying to involve myself as much as possible in crypto. I think I'm like as much of a degen as I am a miner, and I've messed around a lot with Web3. But one thing specific about Web3 is that it's too broad. It's hard to point at what part of Web3 there is, because there's Web3 gaming, there is Web3 email, like for example, Dmail, I think, which was, there's some stuff that are out there that are pointless that we can just use the Web 2 version of it, and it's still a lot better than a Web 3 version of it. And when we look at decentralized compute, I don't know personally if I would label that as Web 3. I would just label that as DePIN, as a lot of platforms are calling themselves now, because at the end of the day, you're tokenizing an infrastructure. So rather than being a giant like Google or Microsoft, so you have this bunch of database centers and a lot of equipment, you're someone that can build a platform, an onboarding system better than them, but you don't have to have the overhead costs on you for building that infrastructure. You can just decentralize it and use the people around the world to build that for you and just tokenize it for them. So I think that's the beautiful part. But how I see Web3 actually is you being able to use your wallet address as your identifier to log in anywhere you want. So I think that's how I see Web3 specifically. But DePIN is like a whole different category for me, in my opinion. Nothing is set in stone, of course, because we all know this field, everybody throws any labels they want, and it's how it is.
That's a really good point. I almost like a single sign-on for all things that's verified by you at a decentralized level. That's really cool to think about.
Right, but then the problem comes in is that there's a million blockchain, there's a million person trying to do the same thing, and you don't have one single place of truth, we can say. So therefore, Web3 is just a bunch of scribbles for now until all the competition goes out, and then there's one solid platform that kind of combines it all. And we can see it happening with things like Ronin, for example, and Avalanche does great, having their like subnets going on. So there's a lot of great things going on.
Yeah, for sure. What about repurposing hardware for AI or decentralized infrastructure as a service. Things like Vast and Flux and Akash. Are you guys, have you done any of that, or are we just straight mining here?
Straight mining.
Just straight mining.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had this project of like, I'm gonna rebuild some of my stuff, and I kind of did, and by the time I was done with it, mining profits were back up again, and it was a pointless endeavor, so
Yeah.
it never went anywhere for me. So no, I haven't, and I think it's an interesting genre, and I think there's absolutely like interest there, and a lot of cool stuff happening. But there is also interesting cool stuff happening like within the little bubble of my world, which is mining. So I think just for like my own sanity, I like to focus hard on like a few things rather than get into a little bit of everything. That's kind of my mantra with my channel and mining journey, and just in life in general, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'm the complete opposite. The all trades.
Yeah, I know.
I know a little bit about a whole lot of shit.
In the name.
Yeah. Well, it takes all kinds. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
So do we not call decentralized compute mining? That's what confused me.
I think depending on what it's used for. So like decentralized compute, like Vast AI, for example, that's using not just CPU, but GPU and a whole server infrastructure to essentially deliver like decentralized Docker. Well, I say decentralized, but it's Docker as a service, right? So anything you can run in a Docker container, whether it's like mining or whether it's, stable diffusion or any type of application that can be containerized like that, providing that as a service per hour, cheaper. I don't want to say more reliable, but cheaper specifically than going to an AWS or an Azure and spinning up an instance and having to kind of put all of that front end work on there. I mean, you've got to stand up VNets. You've got to understand, what VM cluster is going to communicate with the application specifically. So that's how I see decentralized compute versus mining. I guess they're kind of one and the same, just depending on the use case in the end. Yeah.
Can I have a bit of a question here, which is like something like Vast AI isn't. This is a question I genuinely am asking. Is that actually decentralized compute though? Because isn't Vast like a centralized entity that can just like kick you off the network if they don't like you?
Yeah.
So I don't think that is actually decentralized then, is it?
The decentralized part of it is that you're building the infrastructure from all over the world. You don't have your own data center that contains all the GPUs. But you're right, they can definitely ban you. But just like Bitcoin can blacklist your wallet on a lot of exchanges, not Bitcoin specifically, but exchanges can blacklist your wallet. And a lot of coins themselves do have control over the user. So we see it a lot happening when someone does a malicious thing like stealing a lot of money. Their wallet gets banned across a lot of places instantaneously. So things like that, we can see that there's always going to be a central authority. There has to be. Else there won't be no leadership to control a project. I'm not trying to protect them or anything. I honestly don't know Vast AI as much. There's I feel like a lot of platforms in the same niche, but that's my take on. Because I always think about it. It's like, what's decentralized about all this? Even coins, like there's a code base and there's contributors and core contributors. They control the narrative for most of it. So it is the way we have to deal with it.
Cool.
So would you consider Bitcoin the only true decentralized, project since leadership really stepped away?
I would. I think governance, a lot of tokens set up governance systems. So they are decentralized in a way where you can submit your voting based on the token you own. So that is decentralized, but then it's decentralized at a cost. You do have to have the token. You do have to have a major share in it to be able to even put in your votes. But yeah, Bitcoin is definitely fully decentralized.
Yeah.
It's at least the most decentralized.
Because even on Bitcoin, like there's active development going on. Like someone is somewhere is deciding what development to do on it. So
and somebody's approving these pull requests.
Yep.
Yeah, but to actually implement them across the entire chain, you have to have
It takes
over
that vote.
50% of all the nodes
yeah,
worldwide
yeah.
accept the code change. So yeah, and that in terms of that, it is very decentralized. But yeah, the answer to this equation is often in crypto. Like, yeah, if you take these compute ones, there has to be somebody who builds the marketplace, someone who builds the platform. Yes, the compute is spread out across the globe technically, so that aspect is decentralized, but the running and operation of the thing who makes the decisions, that is centralized. And the blockchain answer would be like create it some level of governance, or create a DAO, or create some way where we all vote, we make decisions. But really, like, it's, code. People love to talk about like code is law and code is whatever, but it's limited. It's not creative. It's there's certain aspects that you have to have some of that centralized nature if you want certain things to happen with the entire thing, and then you just have to be accepting of that with the specific project or company that you're getting into, and if you like that or not for them specifically. But I don't think there is like one silver bullet for that, making it truly decentralized for a platform like compute.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what Andy said. I mean, we can also see this in Helium, Hive mappers, all that stuff. We're contributing as a decentralized population. We're all contributing, we're all recording what needs to be recorded. But still, the leaders behind Hive mapper decide what happens, decide when to stop rewards, decide what will happen with that data you've contributed. They know better on how to lead that data into an incentivized data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So real quick in the chat, guys, if you have any specific questions for anybody here, on the panel, make sure you at me and ask the questions. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Mining pools. So back to the mining side. What drives you guys to decide on what pools to use or when to use pools versus, going at it alone? Anybody?
Well, I feel like I've gone first a lot, so I didn't want to go first again.
Well, I can answer this really quick for me in that I've never solo mined ever.
Never.
I've only ever done
at all.
pools.
Huh. Okay. Is there a reason for that? It's not worth the gamble, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I also just want to set up my own early ones. Didn't want to set up my own node to deal with like solo mine, and set my own kind of little solo pool or whatever. I just always hopped on whichever the earliest pools were and just said, hey, whoever had the initiative to start this initial pool, they get my pool fee. They get to enjoy that reward, and I jump on board there. Just easier. That lazy ass. I spend a lot of time with like speculation and finding projects and moving from thing to thing, but when it comes to actual execution of it, lazy.
Yeah. Just whatever the first one on the board, you throwing darts at it, or
sign me up.
Okay.
On my side, I usually look at the hash rate. I do try to decentralize as much as possible. But what really buys me off is that if they have a nice UI, I'm sold automatically. That's it. Yeah. Nice UI is a very big plus for me. That's all I need. You got me as a loyal customer from there.
Good UI, yeah. What about you, Sebs?
Yeah, I mean, as for solo mining, the only real solo mining I've done is for fun. I was just looking at my little, these Bitcoin,
those little USB things.
Yeah. But again, just for a bit of fun and potential to hit a block, but probably not. As for what pools I go with, I mean, you try to decentralize, obviously, because that is good for the project. But in the end, they all do the same thing. So kind of just go like what you said, mining chamber, go with the one where you like the UI the most. That's kind of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I look for ones where if I'm mining multiple things, I can consolidate. Like Two Miners is really good at that. They've got a wide array of, coins that I would be mining. So I like to, go there. So all my things are in one place, a single dashboard kind of thing. And solo mining. So the only successful solo mining I did was actually on Caspa. So early 2023, I pointed all my rigs and I was hitting like 6-7 blocks a day for a couple of weeks there. And then people, network started going up and it just wasn't worth it. So I went back to pool mining. And then just like you, I've got a couple of these little, things around like the USB miners. I've got one of the BitAxe machines that I'm, hoping for a block one day. And actually Antminer made, I really wanted to find one of these. So they made in like 2017, the R1 where it's like a little, like a phone charging plug that's got a USB on it, but it actually has an old like wireless G router built in, and it takes like 3 watts, but it also has like a single ASIC chip in there. So I've got one of those for Litecoin and one of those for Bitcoin, just plugged in and hashing away. The Bitcoin one is actually too slow. It won't connect to the network. So I've got it on Bitcoin Cash, but they made one called an R3. That's the same thing. I think it had a couple of ASIC chips in it, but it was in the form of a clock. And I want that next to my bed, just a digital clock that mines crypto, or solo mines. That's my timing of timing the market. Unintended.
It's like
one thing I wanted to bring up too is like, because I'm big on like diversifying my holdings. So in that, like unminable has just been like, there's nothing like it. You can mine kind of whatever's most profitable. Like they support so many different algos now, and get your payout in like, it's close to like 90 different assets now. So yeah, I just felt like I should bring that up too.
Yeah, I love unminable. In fact, I've got a couple of box miners around the house. When it starts getting cold, I'll turn them on and help heat up the house a little bit. And they're all just pointed, and I just make Dogecoin as I heat the house.
Yeah,
and I really enjoy that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
I know unminable kind of takes a bigger cut than any other pool, but then it's like, as we spoke about very early on in this conversation, are you actually just looking at straight up what is most profitable today, or are you looking at what has the biggest potential future upside? And then it doesn't matter if unminable takes a 5% bigger cut than every other pool, but you choose to mine a different coin that 400x's compared to the coin you would have mined, which did a 0.5x, and you lost money on it. Like you gotta like figure out what your actual strategy is, I feel like.
Yeah.
Plus, to what they bring on the table, it is justifiable for them to take a bigger cut, because you are consolidating a lot of or like delegating a lot of the work you would have had done to them instead, which is great.
Yeah,
for sure. So Mining King with $10 super chat. Thank you, sir. Favorite new project that the panel is researching or looking into?
I can
Anyone?
take it.
Go ahead, man.
I feel like I always jump in first. I don't want to
Somebody's got to go
this
first. Go
conversation.
Well,
sure.
So
like I have recently just on the channel been looking into not like brand new coins, because I'm terrible at getting into brand new coins. I'm always late, what do you say, late on the bus or whatever. But the of the coins I've been looking into recently, one that stood out to me the most was actually Zephyr. It's kind of basic in what it is, but it's just like got a very clear like objective with what it wants to be. It wants to be a like very like sort of anonymous stable coin in a way. Like they want to be if Monero and USDT had a baby, kind of. And that's just a cool concept, and they seemed very focused on that one thing they wanted to do, and they have in place a pretty, on paper at least, theoretically foolproof way of how to pin their stable coin to the dollar value. So I out of all the ones I looked into recently, where some of them is like a Caspa fork, and it's like, hey, we're Caspa with AI. Okay, what AI? We're gonna do like proof of use work. Okay, in what regards? I don't know. It's just like
a lot of it is words.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're gonna have the mining do AI stuff also. That's basically what their white paper is. But Zephyr surprised me in how like well fleshed out everything actually was. So yeah, Zephyr's cool.
Interesting. I hadn't looked into that project. I've heard about it, and watching some of the other tubers, do
also,
videos on it and stuff.
I want to say I'm not an expert on coin analysis at all, and I'm just some dude on the other side of the world in a basement here. So don't go putting all your stuff into Zephyr just because I thought it was cool. I'm not an expert. Like I make YouTube videos. Come on.
That's the Sebs financial advice. Got it.
No, stop it.
Oh, What about you guys? Mining Chamber, what about you? What's a new project that you're looking into?
Does it have to be mining specific, or can we go all around Web3 here?
He didn't say. He said new project that the panel is researching or looking into.
But he is the mining king, so I'm assuming it has to be the mining niche.
Mm.
But no, honestly, in the mining niche itself, I haven't had a lot of projects that caught my eye recently. Zephyr is one that I've been jumping into, and I CPU mine on my personal PC. But other than that, I've been a lot more into the Web3 gaming side of things and the nodes as well.
Mhm.
So, for example, Xi nodes, that project when it first launched on KuCoin, I think, or the first exchange it got on, immediately I had to get some of it because it did seem like a very good project. It's like the better alternative to Gala, but we don't need to go into that rabbit hole, right? And the Web3 gaming, there's a lot of awesome projects. They got Shrapnel, they got Big Time, a lot of really big titles coming out with good utility for their token. So that's the thing, us as crypto miners and as crypto degens in general, it's so easy for us to throw money at projects because we see it as like most of them will just go up or something, like some, with that mentality of like, oh, it's crypto, it doesn't matter, $1,000, it's nothing in crypto, it's just numbers. But a lot of these projects are just forks, like Seb was mentioning. Caspa forks, they pretend that they're going to add things, but in reality, it's just another money grab. So it's hard to really find the best project until you dumb things down and be like, okay, me personally, as a non-crypto guy, would I use this at all in my day-to-day? And if you say yes, then that's a project that's worth getting into. So I see the games, because I do play often video games and stuff. So I see like, okay, this game, can I replace it with a Web 2 alternative? Then okay, yes, then I'll buy the token, and that's it.
For me, I mean, I don't know. I do a lot of stuff. I've probably bought 20 different things just this past week. Yeah, I'll echo Mining Chamber. Lots of gaming stuff. I just got into Gunzilla. Off the Grid is going to be just amazing. I'm super stoked about that AAA game. Big names on board. One that maybe is a good fit for this audience is Storage Chain. And buying Storage Chain, it is a $400,000 to $600,000 market cap. Teeny tiny, microscopic, but really serious team and great product. It's like a Dropbox competitor, online cloud storage competitor. You can sign up and get an account yourself just as a consumer to use as storage, and they give you 150 gigabytes for free with your account, which is like huge. And they have storage nodes where you put storage on the network and you give up that storage to support the network, and you get paid rewards. So that one's teeny tiny. Again, well under $1 million market cap, which is where I get excited and I buy in. And yeah, I've got some Shrapnel. I really wanted Xi Games nodes, but they had KYC and they wouldn't let United States people buy in, so I missed that. But that, man, if you got into that one, bought a $250 to $400 early stage node, those things airdropped you like $500 worth of tokens each, and they're extra tokens. That was a crazy good play if you got into that one early.
The average month about 1.8K USD, which is pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
wow.
awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I think the newer project that I'd say I'm researching is Radiant. Just I don't know. It looks like it might have some pretty good potential to me. I know that traditionally they've said, all we're going to do is transactions, but I'm wondering if there's going to be some building going on in the background there. And then, Jeffkey gave 5 memberships. Thank you, sir. All set. Vika CV, MC, Katana, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th one. Oh, Automatic Beats. We're all gifted memberships. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. And what you said, Mining Chamber, kind of resonates with me real well. Like, is this something I would use? Which points me to Flux. Like, having that decentralized cloud, if I could pay for Active Directory or identity management, kind of cloud computing services on an enterprise level with a crypto that I could mine at home, right off the power to mine a crypto that then I'm utilizing in a business standpoint, that turns my gears. I really like that. And yeah, Andy, storage, that's STORJ, right? That's a kind of
So that's a different one. Yeah, I was just saying to Max in the chat, WStor, WSTOR. That is storage chain that I'm talking about. Storage
Interesting.
is one I don't have any exposure to. That one's been around for a bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm specifically interested in storage chain though because it's so tiny, and it does have a lot of really solid fundamentals. So I'm like, this seems like it's crazy undervalued. So I'm just going to buy some now and see how the next 6 to 12 months pan out with this depend stuff. So
That's the same type of, along the lines of that storage layer of Web3, like you said, with like a decentralized Dropbox, so to speak, where you can buy it and put your data out there. The issue I've always seen with that, and I think this started with Chia, is how is that kept secure, and how is that, I want to say regulated, but I guess you get what I'm kind of trying to say, is like how is that put into place? Okay, I've got 10 terabytes of extra storage that I'm just going to put on a micro PC and just put towards the network. How do I know what's being used? That's being used for, if it's stuff that I don't want anything anywhere near my home network. How is that going to affect me if somebody's busted doing some stuff they shouldn't be doing and they're utilizing my storage for that? And if I want to put my kids' pictures on a decentralized cloud, how do I know that it's encrypted at rest, it's encrypted in transit, that it's spread out, the data's spread out across multiple nodes? There's so many like what ifs there that I personally wouldn't use it. And but looking at like you're saying, looking at it, it's hey, this has good potential and good use cases, and it could explode. And that's what ultimately you're looking at, is less of a use case and more of a profitable endeavor, right?
yeah, and Chia doesn't actually have anything to do with storage. Chia is a full-on blockchain to do payments and NFTs and build stuff on top of and whatever. They just use hard drives. But for these that do specifically use drives for storage and stuff, there's been several over the years. Yeah, you have to like do a little bit of your own digging and verify that you trust their end-to-end encryption and the way that they break things apart. And then how they also regulate if they do spy on what's on there to make sure you don't have, because there's no kidding, there's stuff that it floats around the internet that I don't want anywhere near my home network or anything that someone could store on my drive. So you'd have to kind of trust the technology a bit there. But that is a problem for all storage solutions, and so there has to be ways to figure it out. But yes, the short answer is it'd be really cool if this stuff works out and it turns into a viable end product and has the full market fit. And then 5 years from now, I'm sipping champagne with my storage chain bags or whichever one. Fill in the blank. But really, I speculate and I know what the narratives are going to be. And DPIN, we've all been talking about it. There's a reason we're talking about it. It's massive now. It's only going to get bigger. It's a very exciting narrative in crypto. It's a very exciting sector. And so if I find undervalued things that people go, why is this so cheap? I'm going to buy a bunch of this. And then my value goes up and I can exit the market at some point successfully. That's a win because I want more Bitcoin and I want more things like that. So I want to put those profits in that and just sail away into the sunset. But yeah, I guess different goals depending on what you're trying to do here. But I do hope it all works out. But I also want to make money in the process.
Well, and how's
curious
that?
to jump into the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nope, go for it.
I was just gonna jump into the same talk. So I'm curious to get into that and see exactly what happens behind the scenes, because it's the same dilemma that decentralized VPNs have too. If your IP is being used for malicious activity, how do you how do you make sure that you regulate this? So I wonder if we're still far away from reaching like an optimal solution here, or are we already there but we just didn't look into it yet? And that's something I'm interested to jump on and research about.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of these decentralized things can be used nefariously for sure. And us, miners or service providers or whatever, how does that affect us? One, if something does happen and somebody gets caught doing some stuff they're not supposed to, and you are involved kind of by proxy, right? How does that affect us? And then, to Andy's concern, do we trust the technology? Like we've got to make those decisions ourselves.
I think we can look at Google Drive, for example, and when you upload something, there's checks that run behind the scenes. For example, for any malicious files, you'd get flagged, and then that wouldn't be uploaded to Google Drive servers. So there's always going to be that compromising privacy that we have to settle for. You can't have full privacy. You can't have full security. It has to be in between. There has to be some automated checks that run through. So long that these automated checks don't capture any of your information, it should be in an ideal position.
See, I mean, I do think there should be a solution out there for somebody if they truly want it, where it is truly fully private. I just don't want it on my home network where people have the ability to do that. But I think, in the market out there in the wide open world, it's nice that know that there could be a solution that offers that if you want that for whatever reasons. But I just don't personally want it on my own network. But what Mining Chamber was saying about like early stage or where we at, we don't have any idea. But Amazon's market cap is $1.82 trillion. Bitcoin's is 1.2 or whatever, 1.3, and it's the biggest of the big crypto. It's by far the most giant. All these other ones are microscopic. There's like, it's just so early. There's no telling how this experiment turns out. All of them could fail, and it could just be a grand failure of experiment with this deep in stuff, or the winning ones from a decade from now already exist. We don't know, so you have to roll the dice a little bit on that one.
So, Hot Crypto Mining, the 999 Super Chat says, look at this panel of distinguished gentlemen. I don't know who you're looking at, but...
yeah, I thought it said disgusting. I was like, yeah, that checks out.
So what's everyone's Bitcoin target by end of year? By end of year. For me, I think we're going to end under 100, probably in the 85 range because of traditional pullbacks after halvings. Even though we've kind of gone past, what we've never seen before, where we've got all-time highs before halvings, and we got ETFs, and we're kind of in uncharted territory. But for me, I think under 100, 85 to 90-ish. Anyone else? Sebs?
Well,
what about you?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, you've come to the right guy, because coin speculation I've been great at in the past. So no, but I mean, the way I like to look at it is, I saw the super chat, so I kind of brought up this like assets ranked by market cap list, just to see, and Bitcoin is currently the 9th biggest asset in the world, and there's like all the way up from Bitcoin all the way up to number 2, which is Microsoft. The market cap is between like 1.3 up to $3 trillion. So like Bitcoin only has to double from here to be the 2nd biggest asset in the world. Do we think Bitcoin is actually the 2nd most valuable thing in the world after gold? Maybe. Like that I guess that depends on how you feel about these things. I don't think we're gonna I don't think the top of this sort of cycle will happen this year. I think more like next year. So I guess for where I think it will be end of this year, yeah. Like I think what you said, 85-ish maybe. That could check out to me. That makes sense.
Throwing darts. Gotcha.
Yeah, basically. when asking me, yeah, you like probably someone like Andy has a way better sort of sense for these types of things, I would believe.
Well, I mean, it's all guesswork, so anything I would say is speculation here as well. But I think that looking at it from a ranking of the assets around the world is a good metric to look at, but it's just missing. Like most of those things are going to be companies and the stocks and stuff, with the exception of gold or silver, which is always on that list. And I think Bitcoin is better than gold personally. Whether the rest of the world will agree over the next 2 decades, I don't know. We'll find out. But what those charts are missing is just entire markets and entire reserves. Like these are investables assets, and I think Bitcoin can possibly transcend that. It can be the entire settlement layer for entire markets globally. where we currently use the US dollar for that. And we know how many US dollars there are out there. We're making more of them every single day, just trillions and trillions. So I think that, that is one view to look at as purely just an investable. And then I think my thesis long-term for Bitcoin is that it eventually transcends that and becomes something like a world reserve currency or a world reserve asset, where entire markets are moved across on Bitcoin. Entire markets are pegged to it. In that case, sky's the limit. There's trillions and trillions of dollars beyond that. But even, gold, that seems like a great longer term goal, and that's 14 and some change $trillion. And so that's $600,000 to $800,000 Bitcoin. But this year, let's not, Andy, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get too bullish. This year, in past halving years, right after the halving, we've seen anywhere from a 10 to 20% correction post halving. So, if that happens, we drop down into the mid 50s or something from where we're at now, high 50s. But we'll see what happens, but I can't imagine we're not going to be over 100,000 in the next 6 to 9 months. I can't imagine we'll be under 100K this year. It could happen, sure, but when I watch the current inflows from the ETFs, it's just monumental. 2 weeks ago, it was 33,000 and some change. Bitcoin bought up by BlackRock, Fidelity, Bitwise, etc. Last week, it was as much. And again, every day, only 900 Bitcoin are created. And so it's just whatever's being newly minted into the market and what's available on over-the-counter exchanges and on exchanges themselves, which those numbers have been unfortunately dropping and dropping and dropping. Well, and I guess good for us, have been dropping. So I just see a massive supply shock happening. And once we get post-halving, this is only going to compound. And what happens when there's not enough supply to meet demand? The price goes up. And so, whether it's this year or next, 100 to 150 at the minimum is where I'm kind of viewing it. I think it'd go a lot higher, but I don't want to get too excited. I will be very happy with 6-figure Bitcoin, so we'll just see where it goes.
And that's why you ask Andy and not me.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
That's the
I
Andy
just want to say
financial
I echo
advice.
Andy and I leave it at there. But
Yeah.
I'm always the bearish person. I want the market to go down because you can always buy more when it's down. You can never buy more when it's up. It just
Right.
it's it's a bad feeling where you buy it now at 60,000. You're gonna regret it. But yeah, and I can't deny what Andy said. But I really do hope that something would come up where Bitcoin ends up taking a little dump, so I can buy a bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening. Like Andy mentioned, the ETFs are flowing in a lot of money. It's exposing Bitcoin to a massive money market. And that in itself is going to, again, shock the supply. A lot of Bitcoin will be gone. Most people will notice that. And then from there, it's going to feel a lot more scarce unless something comes up politically that can really dump on Bitcoin.
Yeah, the Swan events. Yeah. So how long can that be sustainable, though? Like the Fidelities and the BlackRocks and these large companies coming in and just buying massive amounts of Bitcoin, like that can't just keep going, can it?
That's totally up to demand of the markets. I think here in the United States, I think aside from just speculation, let's make money, that is certainly fueling this. But looking at all the charts and looking at the experts, it seems like retail is not doing this. It's mainly established traders, institutions, it's funds who are buying these ETFs. Retail hasn't entered the picture yet. But I think that the hype and speculation is certainly one aspect of the fuel. But here in the United States, we are finally, thankfully becoming a bit disillusioned with the dollar. We're finally understanding what this experiment, the results are. And that's just wild inflation. Having a collection of just a couple, handful of individuals who determine the entire monetary policy for the entire country on the fly without knowing years in advance what that monetary policy is going to look like and being able to print willy-nilly constantly. We're adding $1 trillion of debt every single year in this country. So it's wild. We printed more money in 2020 than existed for the entire previous 200 years of for the entire first 200 years of our existence as a country in one single year. Anyway, I think people are finally realizing what the repercussions of that are, and that the government is not doing them a big favor by continuing to devalue their currency. Wages are going up, but money creation is going and inflation is going up at a much higher rate, and people are seeing that their dollar goes not nearly as far. Groceries are more expensive, whatever. And so eventually people will alternatives to that. And that's been gold in the past, and it's been just investments in general, getting into the stock market. But I think Bitcoin is becoming more and more of an attractive option for people.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's a matter of how many people are hungry for this thing going into the future. And we look at other countries that have had total currency collapses. The appetite can be quite massive. So as long as there's demand, it can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I think one more important thing is that in any economy book you'll read, you'll know that the currency is evaluated by the people itself. How much do they believe in it? So like a piece of paper can mean a lot just because of what people believe in it. And now that we're seeing all these big money going into Bitcoin and believing into it as much as they believed in the dollar, we are going to see people also follow that and Bitcoin becoming a main asset rather than just another means of exchange. But if we don't see that happening, then Bitcoin will just remain on the sidelines as it always been.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good way to put it. Well, so I don't want to end it there on a...
Sorry. Real bummer, Andy. Way to go.
Gosh, Andy, geez. We'll have to talk about your performance after this, okay?
Yeah, very good.
So, two last things I want to ask everybody. One, what is your favorite GPU and why? And two, what was your biggest mining failure? However you want to spin that, your biggest failure in mining that you learned from.
And I will not go first this time.
Okay.
Mine is simple. Okay, mine is simple. I just want to piss off Panda in the chat. Radiant 7s always will be my favorite.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the case is. My biggest failure in mining is probably going for shelves instead of cases right off the bat. I feel like cases do help a lot with airflow.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go with shelves, it's just a lot of headache. And then you're just left over with a bunch of power supplies and cables and risers that you don't really need. But yeah, I can't remember anything other than that. I haven't burned anything, thankfully. Nothing popped in the house yet. So that's about it.
That's good.
Favorite? I mean, I don't run in them anymore. But man, I was so psyched to be running 1070s and 1080s and 1080 Ti's. So anything from the 1000 series NVIDIAs or where my heart always goes back to when it comes to GPUs. If I were buying today, I'd probably be looking at buying some 3070s or something. Failure? I mean, I've bought countless things that ended up being scams, and they ran with my pre-sales of certain hardware. I put money into one or two FPGAs years ago that were fails. I've definitely just dedicated huge swaths of GPU time for months and months to stuff that just didn't amount to anything. Countless of those. And I mean, those are probably some of the big, just losing money on it. I mean, my first 2017, just getting so caught up in so much FOMO into 2018, just buying, spending $1,500 or something per 1080 Ti or something like that, $2,000 per, learning hard lessons like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
I would say my favorite GPU is also the Radeon 7s. They're just great, reliable, never crashes, and
Sure they are.
But honestly, like it sounds like I'm joking, but like recently I've kind of changed my mind a little bit about specifically GPU mining, and I've thought a lot about like, well, what is the thing that makes a GPU good for specifically mining, right? And what do GPUs have over other types of hardware? And it's like that memory speed more than anything, right? Like if you got a coin that's going to stay GPU mineable, like an ASIC resistant coin, that's going to be down to a lot of memory calculation, at least from my understanding and listening to people like the LolMiner developer explain his new fish hash and all that. And what do you need then? Well, you need GPUs that got great memory bandwidth, and there isn't really anything that can match the Radeon 7 with its HB2 memory. So kind of from that perspective, yeah, you have a lot of other GPUs that can do like great core calculations, like the whole RTX 40 series, right? But any core focused coin is gonna kind of go FPGA ASIC eventually anyway. So if you're hedging your bets on like coins that are gonna actually stay GPU mineable, you kind of should be focusing a bit more on memory focused GPUs, in my opinion. And then the R7s are great. Like there's kind of nothing to beat them. But in a more practical approach, like perspective of it all, yeah, they're not reliable. They're hard to come by. Like miner support isn't really there maybe as much for newer algos and stuff like that. So a good, just like easy to come by, good at everything card is always going to be the 3070. And for the longest time, I've been like the EVGAs, XC3s are the best 3070s. And I thought that was like my thing. And I was like championing this GPU, the XC3. And then Panda goes out and buys 128 of them. And now Panda is the XC3 3070 guy. So I was like, well, I got to find a new thing then, I guess.
You could always
EVGA.
Yeah.
But they're great. And I think my biggest mistake in mining has always been a focus on like, I love building cool rigs. You know, I love tinkering and I love coming up with things. And because of doing that, I overspend on everything. I like buying all the same brand and model GPUs for my rigs. And I had this whole thing of like, oh, I want to build an all white ROG Strix rig, and like overspent. Like I got this like very specific motherboard shipped all the way from China because it was a little bit more white than any other motherboard I could find here, and just like stupid stuff like that. And in my head, I'm like, but I'm making content about it, so it's worth it. And then like that video was like my worst performing video in like months on the channel because no one gives a crap about my stupid all white mining rig, you know. So definitely getting caught up in like, well, but here's the thing though, right? It's a hobby and I really enjoy it. So is it a mistake? I don't know. But from like a purely like mining as a business or whatever, my biggest mistake is definitely having too much fun building the rigs, you know, and overspent. Like I could have just bought whatever 3070, but I specifically wanted the white ROG Strixes for that rig.
Yeah.
So, and I spent.
I like that Seb's answer is like the equivalent of in a job interview when you're like, what's your biggest weakness? And you're like, I think I'm too nice to you. I think I have too much fun. You know, that's just my biggest weakness. I have too much fun building mining rigs.
Yeah, and I don't know when to leave work. I always stay so long after hours all the time.
I love it.
No, but from the perspective of like, I overspent on hardware a lot. And ended up using octominers for all my rigs in the end anyway. So I have all these like just like you mining chamber, probably like open air rigs that are empty because I've moved all the cards into server cases anyways. So
you have the PC builder in you that's telling you to chase the prettiest look and screw everything else. And
yeah,
that's
exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Whatever. You know, it's just how it is.
Yeah,
I can't blame you. You're a true hobbyist.
I do have one more big mistake if we have time.
Yeah.
And it's very basic, and I've mentioned it a lot of times before, but like going all in on GPU mining during the ETH days, because I got so burned after like when the merge happened, just like everyone else. And I'm not saying I shouldn't have done it, but I'm saying like I should have allocated some of those funds to other genres of mining, right? Like I shouldn't have gone all GPU. I should have gone like 25% GPU, 25% CPU, 25% ASIC, and 25%, I don't know, helium hotspots or something. Like you should, like, unless you really truly strongly believe in something and that's what you want to do, sure, go all in. But like the more calculated approach with most things in life is kind of to diversify a little bit and protect yourself.
I also want to add to that real quickly is the hodling mentality that kind of ruins a lot of us is when we decide not to sell, especially the hardware when it's at a high price. That's something that I do regret not doing. But for me, I'm looking at it, okay, I need this for videos later on. But here I am 2 years later almost and haven't made a single video on all the hardware that I kept hoarding for the past, entire time. So that's another thing briefly that I want to add.
Yeah.
Don't marry your bags and don't marry your hardware.
Yeah.
And he says it best.
Yeah, for me, ASICs have always been easy to flip. Like I don't have that relationship with ASICs that I do with GPUs. Like I love my GPUs. I don't think, other than I finally broke down and sold all my RX 570s and 480s and like that Polaris series. probably a year ago, right after the merge. I was like, okay, these aren't going to be good on anything else. I'm just going to get rid of them while I can and make a little bit back of what I spent. Other than that, I'm like, I've got all my cards. I don't want to sell them. I'm going to, because it's the right thing to do at the right time, even the 4090s and the 3090s and anything I've got, once you get to that point, if it ain't bolted to the ground, I got the DJ mindset of it's all for sale. You want this shirt, man, you give me a good price, you can have it. And that's, I think my biggest failure was Chia, actually. So I had a hard drives laying around again from IT work in the day job, decomming servers and whatnot. I'll deban or wipe hard drives with DoD software and make sure that it's completely clean, sanitized, and then I put it on Chia, like terabyte at a time to 5 terabytes at a time. And I had not too much, but early 2021, when it was 12, 1500, 1800 a coin, I hit a solo Chia block, and that's two block 1.75 Chia. So it was like $3,000 right off the bat. I never made a freaking account on a weird exchange, so quickly to get that shit cashed in. Changed it to Litecoin, and anyway, after that, I was like, oh man, I'm all in on this, and I think I've got 200 terabytes of storage here now in SANs and NASs and random hard drives just laying around that haven't been used since, because the value went down, and it's like, I don't have anything else to do with this, and I could put it on eBay and get $5 a piece. But it's just like I think we've all kind of reiterated, is like yeeting into it and buying more upfront than we probably should have has been, again, my biggest mistake. And I think the GPU I like the most going to be the 1660 Ti Super series, because you get pretty good hash rates on just about anything you pointed at. It's fairly energy efficient, and they're cheap. I mean, I got all mine for $100 or less each. So I got like 16 of them.
I'm still rocking mine. I got 1660 Ti's. Yeah.
Yeah, those TIs are great. And I've never owned, to this day, a 3070. I still don't have one. Just waiting on that sweet deal. I'll have to buy one. Get another Founders.
That entire bear market, you couldn't find that sweet deal? I'm just surprised.
No, I was like $200
Really?
is my target. I want to, because I could get 3060 Ti's for around $200, 220, 180, somewhere in there. Just never found a 3070 at that price point that I was ready to pull the trigger on.
Mm.
So,
well, I mean, going off the perspective of like it's all about mem on GPUs, like the 3060 Ti's are basically on par with the 3070.
Yeah.
It's kind of just on the core stuff where the 3070s have a little bit of a leg up on the 3060 Ti. But then again, do we care about core performance or not?
Yeah, depending on what you're mining and what you're doing with it, and then resale value. 3070s are going to bring a little bit more than 3060 Ti. I think.
Good point.
So, especially to non-mining people. So guys, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. I think this was a lot of fun. We had a pretty good turnout. Is there any questions in the chat, guys? Last minute questions, or any questions that you guys have here on the panel that want to ask each other, ask me, ask the chat? Any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all?
While we wait for that, I saw someone ask in the chat a while ago, super specific, but they asked how big my stickers that I sell are. So they're about, so I thought I could find one, but I didn't have one. They're about like this big. So I hope that helps.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Seb, would you sell your boxes ever?
No way, man. No, they're part of the set, man. You're gonna have to. Yeah, no. Sorry.
I want to have a pool of it or something. Like they put that the ball pits. Just put box pit and jump in it.
Yeah.
People will buy anything though. Empty boxes, they'll sell.
Oh yeah.
When I was moving, nobody bought my boxes. I had to get rid of them.
Really?
I was kind of giving them away, but nobody wanted them.
Oh wow.
Surprisingly.
Huh. Man. In a former life, I was a used car dealer. Worked at a car dealership selling used cars, and there was a box when we would, sell cars or send them off to auction or whatever. The extra keys that got missed by the people that either bought it or whatever, the guys that would take it to auction and stuff, they'd always miss a set of keys. So there was a box of random keys, and I And I asked the manager if I could have them. He's like, yeah, whatever. I went home and sold them all individually on eBay for like 150 to 250 a piece. Every one of them. It's weird. Same with owner's manuals. Same thing. I just take them home and like people will buy anything. It's weird.
So for my there's countless things like that for my my home servers and stuff. I've bought plenty of like Western Digital external hard drives at like Best Buy and stuff, and then shuck the drives out of them.
Yeah.
And people will buy the plastic cheap enclosures on eBay for like $30 to $50 each if it comes with the original box or whatever. I guess they want to do some kind of warranty cheating or something. I don't know, but either way, you can shuck them and then sell the. Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that. It's always fun to feel like you beat the system a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me. When bull run 2021, I found a guy selling some L3s for $400 a piece, and I bought 5 of them. So $2,000. I bought 5 L3s, and I sold 3 of them at like $1,500 a piece. So my 2 L3s that are still here, not running right now, but that I've still got in the garage, were free. So the entire time it ROI'd instantly, and I was just straight up making, Doge and Litecoin on these free machines. Wish I could find deals like that more often. They just like every once in a while they'll come around and be like, yeah, and then I'll be searching for like months and nothing ever pops up like that again.
Yeah, and the thing is, like a year from now, we're all gonna be just like kicking ourselves, like, why did we not buy? And insert ASIC miner name here, like E9 Pros or whatever, when they were only $3,500, or but right now we think, I don't want to spend $3,500 on E9 Pro, like it's making pennies a day. But it's always going to be, when's the best time to buy something is like, yesterday, and the second best is right now, or however the saying goes. But it's always like you can never predict what's coming, right?
Well, and it's
hardware arbitrage opportunities, though. I'm telling you, I'm super stoked. I will flip all my Bitcoin machines, and when we're over $100,000, I will, anything and everything that isn't nailed down that's mining or crypto related, shipping it out.
Yeah.
Since we're speaking of ASICs, here I have a question on ASICs. One thing that I haven't really dived into yet. What are the regulations like for ASIC manufacturers? Can they build whatever they want, mine with it, and then decide to sell it whenever they want? Or are there systems and regulations in place to ensure decentralization? That's one thing that still blows my mind.
It's Wild West, man.
Yeah. Do you mean from like a legal standpoint, like laws in China, or
we can discuss morals of the company, but at the same time, actual regulations and legality of it. Is there an actual process that they have to go through and license that they have to get to manufacture any ASICs? Which I'm assuming not.
I think they are just subject to the normal computer manufacturer type stuff. Certain electrical, regulations, make sure things are within safe margins. But beyond that, no. And I think we all know we've all probably received a Bitmain unit that has a little too much dust on it or something, a little too much grime. Like, this doesn't seem brand new. This seems like this has been running for a few months before you decided to let us have it. I think that's pretty common.
All right. It's interesting because you can argue then they have a lot of power on the market, especially the ASIC mining market.
They absolutely do. Yes.
Yeah. And how would that change based on the geolocation that they're built in? The majority of them are in China now. What about if the US starts building those, or other countries that have more strict, regulations and requirements like that? How would that be impacted?
Bitmain, didn't they relocate somewhere else, not in China anymore? Or they've always been based off Malaysia or something like that?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I don't know which country they run out of, but I believe they manufacture in 3 different plants in different countries. I believe like China, Malaysia, and Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken. It's because I remember that from a Red Panda mining video where he ordered like 3 ASICs and he got them all at the same time, but they were all shipped from different countries or something like that. If RPM is still in the chat, he can answer what video that was, maybe. But that's how I guess I know that. As for like manufacturing in other countries. I did visit the infamous Locotech company at their office.
Did you?
Yeah. So I know there's a lot of like, is it vaporware? Is it fake? Is it a scam? I'm not going to get into any of that. But what I will get into is like, I did spend a whole day with them in their office and spoke about everything under the sun when it comes to just like manufacturing. And he said like they had to go through extreme hoops to keep their IP protected. Because there is so much like just straight up theft within this sector of like, if someone invents a more efficient chip for any algorithm and it just has to cross through this long production line of different hands on it, and just at some point some person is just gonna swipe a prototype sample of it and bring it to someone like maybe Bitmain. I'm not saying specifically Bitmain because I genuinely don't know, but like there is a lot of that going on apparently, where you can spend millions of dollars on R&D just to have your chip architecture stolen and reproduced by a different manufacturer.
Wow.
So that is something kind of related to this to really take into account.
The Wild West indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, guys, we've been going for almost 2 hours. Yeah, wow. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I'm really bad at these outros too. So, guys, thank you all for joining the video today, and all of our everyone here on the panel. I really appreciate you coming and doing this with me on my channel. That's awesome. I've hit a milestone. So. Everybody go subscribe to all of these guys. Links are in the video description, and we'll see you around.
Peace. Happy Super Mario Day, everyone.
Have a good one, guys.
$69,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Awesome. And we're out.